It was mid-90s when this young boy in the Himalayan region of North India discovered internet. Those were the times when DSL internet was gaining its popularity. It would take him almost half an hour to connect to internet. But when he was connected, he made the most of it. He would go to chat rooms, the Yahoo chat rooms, if some of you know about it or remember it. He would browse websites containing stories of ghosts, spirituality, consciousness, and all the fantasies that he was cooking up in his head as a teenager. And while browsing all of this fascinating stuff, he stumbled upon this person whom he called a goddess. Her name was Pamela Anderson. And he was almost smitten by her beauty. And next morning, he goes to school and he shared this discovery of internet, which was Pamela Anderson. He shared with his friends what a goddess she is. That's exactly what he said. And they looked at him and they said, "You come from such a reputed spiritual family. And here you are, praising and admiring Pamela Anderson. You're supposed to go deeper into spirituality. And we don't get this. You are spiritual, you meditate, and then you also admire a woman on internet." And they were not even concerned about Pamela. It could have been a Bollywood actress, or it could have been some social activist from a different country. They would have still said what they said. But as I went home, and by the way, if you still have not realized who that young boy was, that was me. So as I went home that day, I truly convinced myself that what I shared was wrong. Maybe I'm not supposed to admire women the way I did. Maybe I'm not supposed to call them a goddess. But on one hand, I was meditating on divine feminine and tantra. And I thought calling women a goddess is a respectful thing. And yet my friends whom I thought knew much more than me, they were saying, "No, you don't call them goddess. You're supposed to just meditate, go to temples, and do that kind of thing." And I think 2 or 3 years later, Titanic released. And it was a huge hit. It was, I think, one of the biggest box office grossers even in India. And I loved Leonardo and Kate Winslet when I first watched it. And I watched it again with my friends second time. And both the times, something interesting happened. The friends I went with, they were not of my age. They were all in college and I was still in middle school. So I was sitting with them and that scene, came in the movie when Jack, played by Leonardo, he starts to paint Kate, Rose. And he tells her, "I want to paint you while you wear this necklace. While you only wear this necklace." And as he says this, I clearly saw parents getting up, taking their children out for a walk, and then coming back when Jack is done painting Rose. And when that scene starts to show up on the screen, my friends and my cousin was there who was also in college. He looked at me and he said, "Yeah, it's time for you to take a walk too, because you're too young for this." I said, "No, I'm not going for a walk. I don't find anything vulgar in it. So I'm just going to sit and watch it." And they stared at me with even a stronger gaze. And I didn't bother. My stare was on the screen, just watching that poetry happening on screen while Jack and Rose indulge in painting. And I still remember when the movie was over, my cousin and his friends, they all told me, "We thought you are spiritual. But look at you. You were all into the screen, enjoying that scene." And I said, "Yeah, that was a scene to enjoy. What was wrong in that?" And then they looked at me with even a stronger gaze. And it was not the first time or the last time that these kind of things happened with me. I've always struggled that every time I've shared my views on sensuality, spirituality, sexuality, enlightenment, I have always received very interesting feedback. And many times that feedback is blended with this question that you are spiritual and yet you are saying this. I get it. People do not see sex and spirituality cut from the same fabric. And while they may not be directly connected, but the truth is, everything that we have as a human being, from sexual energy to our ambition, to our anger, greed, ego, they all are part of what makes us a spiritual being. None of that is supposed to be suppressed. None of that is supposed to be hateful. It's all a part of who we are. And in this podcast, I truly want to start a conversation, a dialogue, where we can understand sex from a different lens, and we can understand how to channel our sexual energy into spiritual energy, and how they both are connected and how they both are misused and misunderstood. I am Chandresh Bhardwaj, and this is Break the Norms. So before we begin, I would like to mention a very special workshop that I'm doing at the Omega Institute in New York. The chances are you have already visited the Omega website at some point in your life, especially if you have been meditating. This is one of the most loved and reputed places when it comes to spiritual teachings and mindful workshops and all that good stuff. I'll be teaching Break the Norms, meditation secrets for a life of courage and bliss. And it's happening from May 24th to May 27th. It's located in upstate New York. So if you live in tri-state area, or even if you don't live in the tri-state, I think it would be worth visiting this place and get into the meditations, the talks, the discussions, and just connect with all the like-minded people. So I'm inviting you, and I'm going to put the link in the show notes. If you are interested, click on it, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at the Omega. So let's begin. I think this is a very fascinating topic for many reasons. This is something that's so natural in humans. The sexual energy is a very natural component of who we are, and yet this is one particular topic that's not discussed or shared openly, or it's not even shared among your friends or siblings. If it's shared with shame, guilt, with a certain shyness. And I feel we all have been part of this collective shame that's connected with sexual energy. And we need to change that conversation. And by that, I don't mean that you start sharing your sexual fantasies out on Instagram. But what I really mean, that you start understanding the root of your sexual energy. And if you have a younger sibling, a friend, a loved one that you feel is struggling with their sexual energy, talk to them. And if you are struggling with it, you got to talk with someone who can truly understand you, listen to you with no judgments. Because this is one aspect of your energy. If that's understood and channeled in the right way, it could create some wonderful, powerful shifts in your awareness. And if it's not understood, if it's not channeled rightly, it's going to create complications in everything that you go through as a human being. It could create complications in the way you eat, in the way you connect with your own self, in the way you conduct your business, your career. It could create complexity in how you deal with money. It goes really deep. You may see it as just sexual energy, but its outcome, its flow, it goes on very different directions. And the reason is there's no such thing as just sexual energy. So what we are is energy, right? You and I, we are awareness, a consciousness. And when we are in this body, there is one energy. There's no separate department for sexual energy, no separate department for emotional energy or the energy of money. It's one energy. Wherever it goes, that's the kind of direction it starts to take. So, and I've often said that when your energy goes upward, it becomes spiritual, it becomes cosmic. When the same energy goes downward, it becomes sexual, biological. And it's up to you in what direction you want to take this energy into. If you use this energy mindlessly, if you use it with no awareness, then it's not even use, it's misuse. And any misuse of your energy, that's going to create its complications. And this episode is a very tiny introduction of what I truly want to start through this podcast, through my books and the workshops I do, because I feel it's such a sensitive topic and I don't want to share it all in one podcast and, make it very confusing for you. I want to share it organically. I want to hear your questions after this podcast. And I truly want to make it as much engaging, as much personalized for you as possible. So growing up in India, I saw a very different perspective about sexual energy. It was more of, I would say, conservative, suppression. Nobody talked about it. There was also respect about it, but also shyness, shame, suppression, and all of that. And I never saw that as a healthy expression of who we are because something felt wrong about it. And after I moved from India to New York, I would say there was more fantasy about sexual energy. There was more of exploitation, casualness about sexual energy. And I clearly saw the problem between the East and the West at that time. That in one culture, there is more conservative attitude about sex. There's more suppression about it. And in the other culture, there's more casualness. It's becoming almost available too easily. And in the other culture, it's not becoming available easily. And that's one of the problems to begin with. And I feel as a society, we need to create a culture where sexual energy has to be respected and understood from a very spiritual point of view. Otherwise, we are always going to be rotating between the conservation of it or the over exploitation of it. And in Tantra, we never really put a different lens to sexual energy. We simply see it as one flow of energy. And if I have to define sex, I would define it as a sacred exchange of energy. That's truly how I see it. And if you have read my book, Break the Norms, I have dedicated an entire chapter on sex. It's titled From Kama Sutra to Kam Sutra. And I remember when the book came out, this particular chapter was getting its own special separate review. So in Tantra, we look at sex as one of the first steps toward higher consciousness. And by that, I don't mean that sexual intercourse is looked upon as one of the first steps toward higher consciousness. The sexual energy in itself is looked upon as one of the higher steps. How you convert or channel that sexual energy is up to you. And once this first step is over, then there are multiple other steps toward higher consciousness. What has gone wrong with a lot of Tantra teachings that most people misunderstand that maybe sexual intercourse was the first step toward higher consciousness and then they get stuck with it. Imagine if you as a child used to play with a toy, a doll, and you were 5-year-old, 8-year-old, and now you are in your 20s or 30s and you are still carrying that doll everywhere. And while you're listening to me, you still have that doll next to you. While you go for business dinners, you still have that doll with you. It's going to get creepy and awkward very quickly if you carry that doll with you everywhere. And most likely the good chances we will never do that because it just looks awkward, it feels awkward, and it's not a sign of balanced mindset, right? But we have been treating our sexual energy the same way. We were stuck with it when we were 15 or 18. As a teenager, we had a lot of amount of it. It became our toy, our source of pleasure. And as you age, the toy has to evolve, right? You have to move on with the different kind of toys, but we are still stuck with the same sexual energy, still the same suppression, still using it as a sneeze. And sex is not a sneeze. You don't have to release it to relieve from it. You have to channel it. That's the ultimate key. I come across people who were obsessed with sexual energy when they were 18 or 22 or early 20s, and that's perfectly natural and normal. But now, if you're 55 and if you are 45, as you are aging, your way of awareness, your way of experiencing life has to evolve. And the sexual energy has to evolve in its own way. And by that, I don't mean you stop having sex, but by that, I mean you indulge in it from an absolute different level of awareness. The sexual energy is our root. This is the root of our existence. We were born out of it. So our emotional and creative channels flow through it. And if you have a complicated understanding of it, it is going to create complications in everything that you do in life. And one thing I have to ask you, I have observed that in almost every human being, including my own self, that our attraction towards sex is not our attraction towards sex itself. It's actually our longing to experience something bigger and deeper than who we are. This is why orgasm feel so meditative, so out of world. Because deep inside, we are longing to experience something way more powerful than our existence. When I come across people who have been dealing with some sort of addiction, and I work with various rehab centers, there's one common thing I see in every addict. They were longing to experience something very powerful and they could not get it. And the substance became their way of controlling that longing. And for so many of us, sex becomes that quick way to experience that longing. As a child, no one teaches us that you are, much more than this body. You are much more than your thoughts, your emotions. And we don't know what to do. And we start to get into quick, easy, impulsive ways of satisfying ourselves. And that leads us into just playing with our sexual energy in all interesting, wrong ways many times. This is one of the reasons we get with wrong partners. Because we just don't know what exactly is happening within. The science will call it with various names. As a spiritual teacher, I like to see this as a deep longing of your existence. And when you're not able to get that, you start to channel that energy wherever it's flowing. This is why meditation is so important as you're growing. If you have children, if you know anyone who's still 8 or 10, inspire them to meditate. Lead them with example, because we need young children to meditate so that we have less sexual abuse, that we have more healthy understanding of what sexual and emotional energy is all about. I like to see sexual energy as this river. When it's flowing properly, it continues to flow, give life to all the plants and people around it. And ultimately, it joins the ocean. It becomes part of a bigger picture. But when it's blocked, when it's not flowing properly, it can cause flood, it can cause destruction, it can clearly destroy all the possibilities of blooming, all the possibilities of life. Okay, so one thing you have to understand about your own energy, and hopefully that will help you understand the sexual energy, that we have become very impulsive. We exist as a reaction. We don't exist here as a mindful response to life, but we exist as a reaction to everything. Our way of living life has become very, very reactionary. Someone compliments you and there's a smile on your face. Someone posts a negative, harsh comment on your Instagram and suddenly the energy shifts. And that's natural. It could happen to all of us. We are human beings. But if we don't change anything about it, it will translate to every other thing. Now the media, the people who are selling us all kind of products, they know we are triggered easily. And they try to sell us things based on our sexual trigger based on our sexual arousal. And this is why you will see men and women pretty much not wearing anything and selling a bottle of water. And the more you look around, the more you will see that our misunderstanding of sexual energy has been abused, has been truly taken advantage of all the times. And this is 2019. I think we truly owe it to our existence to cultivate a certain solid healing in our sexual energy. And when you are being too impulsive, when you are being very quickly reactive to things around you, you have to understand what exactly is going on. You have to understand the root of it. I posted this on my Instagram a few days ago that if you are hungry and you go to a supermarket store, there's a good chance that you will put a lot of junk food in your cart because you are hungry. You don't care if it's organic. You don't care how healthy or unhealthy it is. You simply just put that stuff in your cart. Or if you go to any online website ordering food and you're very hungry, you will order whatever looks super delicious for you. And many times we end up ordering something really crazy that's just to satisfy our impulse. And this is the same way we end up engaging sexually when we are just hungry for it. And the hunger is not really for sex many times. The hunger is for companionship. Hunger is an emotional hunger. And if you could take a pause and truly understand why exactly I am hungry for this, why exactly I'm being so impulsive about it, there's a good chance that you will protect at least 80% of just terrible sexual encounters that you go through. And why you need to protect it? Because you become whom you sleep with. Engage with someone sexually, you exchange the energy on a very deeper level. You absorb their karmic contracts, their anxiety, their fears, their self-doubts, and you also dump your fears, your self-doubts on them. So there's an interesting smoothie that starts to build up between both the partners. And what starts to happen after one sexual encounter or multiple sexual encounters, you start to really feel their karma on you, their attachments on you, and a mindless sex creates terrible attachments. It starts to complicate things in you. And this is why it's so important to truly build a sacred intimacy before you engage sexually. Intimacy could be as simple as just sitting and listening to one song. It could be as simple as just holding hands and sharing a silence. It could be as simple as sharing your favorite drink. When you start to live with alignment of your creativity, of your passion, your meaning, then you'll clearly see that sexual energy is not dominating you anymore. Because what's happening right now? There could be meditation happening out there, a good music, sunset, some beautiful, poetry. Everything is making you sexual. Everything is arousing you. And a lot of people see it as a sign of healthy sexual energy. But I have to tell you, this also means that your center of awareness is misaligned. If you feel sexual by touching a table, by reading a book, by pretty much everything happening around you, it simply means the center of awareness is not in its place. It's like a teenager who's just getting to know his or her sexual energy and they're aroused by anything. I mean, you got to watch the first American Pie to understand what I'm trying to convey here. Your energy has to flow in so many powerful directions that there will be a time for everything. There will be time for your creative passions. There will be time for you to become playful. There will be time for you to be in a complete warrior mode when you're simply creating and rising for the occasion. The energy has to flow in the seasons throughout the day. But if you are stuck and suppressed only in one center, then everything is going to find only one outlet, and that's the sexual outlet. And that's not even a healthy outlet because it's being channeled in a very wrong and complicated way. So if you are someone who feels aroused by anything and everything, take a pause, reflect why is it happening, and then proceed. And it's my experience then when you continue to meditate on why things are happening, why you react to certain things in a certain way, and the ultimate goal is to allow your sexual energy to find a new outlet. I have to share this one quick story with you. This is something I experienced. It didn't happen with me, but I came across it at least, I think it's been 13 or 14 years now. And I've shared it in my public talks very often. This particular woman, she came to see my father. And my father, he's a spiritual guru to many people. And she was discussing that, she has her young daughter. She feels she's now 16 or 17 and she's engaging sexually with just boys here and there. And she's very worried about it. And I was sitting in a different room and trying my best to hear what's happening. Because as a child, I was used to be very curious about what's happening with people, why they want to see my father, what's the problems that my father can solve. So it was a very spiritual obsession, and you may also call it a little bit of nosiness from my side. Yeah, that was also there, I think. But the point is, that conversation changed a lot in my own understanding of sexual energy, because after that woman complained of how her daughter is too sexual right now for her age, I was expecting that my father would tell her that this is something wrong and we got to stop her, and he would be unhappy and all that. But instead he said, stop telling her what to do, stop telling her that she cannot go out, because the more you suppress it, the more rebellious or ugly way this energy will flow. So don't do anything right now, and we'll figure out what to do. And then what I started seeing, that in every spiritual event that we used to have, my father would give this young girl very important duties, such as organizing the entire event, managing the decoration of the event, managing the guest list. And these were very highly responsible duties. And the other volunteers in the team were unhappy that why she's getting the duty. She's definitely not at all responsible girl. And he would say, no, just give her that duty, give her that responsibility. And what started to happen as she started to get into these different jobs, these different creative outlets, her talent started to come out. People started to know she's a great host. She can talk really well on the microphone. She can really address a public gathering. She has a great sense of decorating. She has a great, management skills. And all her skills started to show up. And in the few years, I started seeing a very, very powerful shift in her. As we speak right now, she's a doctor. And she's a successful doctor. She has a child. She's happily married. And, when we talk, she shares with me that how she was such a wild and rebellious girl. And she thought what she's doing is so much powerful and rebellious, but it was not. It was draining her. And she said, I didn't even know that when your father would tell me to do these things, that manage event of 200 people, manage event for 5,000 people, manage this and that work. And she said, I would get annoyed that I don't want to do this. But as she started doing all of this, her energy started finding a different outlet. And I have used this formula on so many of my clients and students. But the key is to truly know why that particular person is feeling this sexual mismanagement, why they have unhealthy relationship with the sexual energy. And then you have to understand and truly reflect within, what is it that you would love to do? What is it that you would want to do? And then try to put a certain effort into that direction. It takes effort, discipline, guidance, but it's absolutely worth it. And as you start to channel this energy into different outlets, you will feel the healing. You will feel that your creativity, your vision, everything is changing for good. And you have to start learning to connect with people in creative ways. And when I say learn to connect in creative ways, it means you have to go beyond the sexual connection. You have to understand sex is not the only way to connect, even if it's a romantic relationship. Sex complicates things. And why it complicates? Because it's not the most natural way to connect at times. There are times when that becomes the most beautiful language to connect, but there are many other moments when it's not the most beautiful language to connect because you are simply hungry and you would eat whatever is on the table. And that's not fun, right? So when you are with someone, let's say it's your friend, or even you are attracted to them for some reason, or even if you are dating them or going out with them for a while, you have to understand and ask yourself this in meditation: how can I connect with this person in multiple ways? And you will find that your awareness will guide you. You will be surprised how you will discover new ways to connect with them. There will be days when you'll simply hold the hands. There will be days when you will not say anything and simply enjoy a certain music. There will be days when you just want to meditate. And when the sex happens on its own, it's a very powerful thing. And that's why I say you don't make love. You allow love to make you. Love has to build you. You don't build it. It builds you. And when you touch someone, you have to touch them with new hands. And that's the expression I have always used. And by that, I don't mean go and get out for a surgery and change your hands. What I mean is your hands have to have a new energy. You cannot bring the old narratives into a new relationship. I've seen that with a lot of my clients, where this interesting narrative that runs in their mind from their old relationships, it ruins the present moment in a new relationship. When they kiss someone, when they touch someone, hug someone, there's some old narrative that shows up and it starts to ruin things. And it ruins things even in friendships. It ruins things in spiritual relationships and business partnerships. That while you are engaging with someone on a new level, the mind will give you some old story. It will create some weird reference about this new person. And it will make you think, oh, maybe this person is not going to be the right person, because I was with this, guy a few years ago who also liked caramel latte. And this guy also loves caramel latte. So maybe both of them are going to be a psychopath. And that's not true. And I don't know why I thought of caramel latte. Maybe I think I need to drink one after this podcast. But yeah, the point is your touch has to be raw. It has to be a new touch. The person who's with you, they deserve that. You owe it to them to give them your best energy, right? Don't worry about what kind of energy they will give you, because that you cannot control. But what I have experienced, when you share your best, honest, raw energy, that's what you will get back. And when you are functioning from a pure state of awareness, you also know if this is the right or the wrong relationship. And it's my hope, it's my strong faith in the human intelligence that we all know pretty much that if this is right or wrong relationship for us. If you are functioning on a deep level of self-love, self-awareness, there's a great chance that you will intuitively know right away if this person is going to honor your presence, if this person is going to receive you in the most respectful way. And then it's up to you how you react to it, how you respond to it. All right. So the lesson for today: connect in creative ways with everyone. Number 2, when you touch someone, let your touch be raw. Let it be fully honest. And number 3, which we will continue to expand in the future podcast, every time you feel a certain arousal, you feel the building of sexual energy, you have to witness, you have to understand what exactly is happening with this sexual energy. What is the root of this sexual energy? What is the root of this arousal? Am I feeling sexual because I haven't had it for a while? Am I feeling sexual because I'm attracted to someone? Or am I feeling sexual because I have nothing to do right now? The more you ask yourself these questions, the more you will release yourself from the impulsiveness of sexual energy. And hopefully, there will be a fire that will arouse in you, that will ignite you, that will inspire you to channel that energy in that moment to something more creative, to something more powerful. And the next podcast is going to be a guided meditation on this particular topic that we just discussed. So hopefully that will be of help to you. That's all for today. Thank you. I hope this podcast may travel through the untapped universe of your darkness, light, courage, passion, and so much more. Please do subscribe and be ready to break your norms. I am so excited and very honored to be part of your sacred journey through this podcast.